All right, so welcome everybody. My name is Megan Shoemaker. I'm the Adult Services Manager at the Town and Country Public Library, and we're happy to have Tracey McFadden here tonight. He is an automobile engineer and an aviation, not an automobile engineer, an automobile and aviation enthusiast. He was a pilot in the Air Force and has recently retired as captain of at American Airlines. He loves teaching. He's taught Caribbean history in Belize and was a flight instructor in the Air Force, and an assistant professor of aviation at University of North Dakota, and also a guest lecturer at Northern Illinois University on airline operations. He's got his bachelor's degree in social science from Michigan State University and a master's degree in human resource management from Gonzaga. He's currently the vice president of the Fox Valley Electric Automobile Association. And so tonight's talk, electric vehicles, normal people drive electric cars. We'll talk about the electrification of the world transportation system. So really interesting topic. We're looking forward to it. And I'm going to go ahead and hand the wheels here over to Tracey.
Thank you so much, Megan, for that introduction. And thanks to everybody at the Elburn Town and Country Public Library for sponsoring this event. Let's see if I can screen share with you. And here we go. And okay, I'm speaking to you tonight because electric cars are my passion. I've spent endless hours studying and researching this upcoming EV revolution, and I continue to do so. And tonight I want to give you a brief look at this huge change that's coming to the world's transportation system. My wife used to tell me or you tell people at parties, she would say, don't ask him about electric cars. He will never stop talking. Well, she's correct. I love talking about electric cars. So I need to warn you that tonight's presentation is 4 hours long and there are no breaks at all. And so you may want to go to the restroom or possibly get yourself a sandwich. Okay, I'm kidding. It's not really. It's only 1 hour long. Anyways, I'm not a car salesman. I'm not here to try to sell you a car. What I hope I can do is pique your curiosity to learn more and maybe give an EV a try, kind of like a green eggs and ham story. Okay. Now, in the past, EVs were viewed as either an ugly, small looking vehicle with very limited range or a toy of the rich. And I'm here to tell you that is no longer true. Electric vehicles come in all shapes and sizes with battery ranges that make them practical for everyone. In addition, they're more affordable. Every major automaker on the planet Earth is now making an electric vehicle. Volkswagen says they expect to sell 1 million EVs by 2022 and have 75 EVs worldwide by 2029. Today, General Motors announced they will eliminate gasoline and diesel light-duty cars and SUVs by 2035, saying that they will invest heavily in electric vehicles and become carbon neutral by 2040. Okay, I'll try to move slides. Sorry about that. That's not going to work. How about that? How about that? Okay, there we go. This is what I want to discuss this evening. I'll start with what's going on around the world in regards to electric vehicles. Then I'll discuss why I drive an electric vehicle and why you may want to drive one. And then I'll talk about various types of electric vehicles, how to charge them, how to buy them. And finally, what can we expect the future of electric vehicles to look like? Now, if you have any questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat. This allows me to keep the presentation under an hour. The president of our Fox Valley Electric Automobile Association, Jeff Miller, is standing by in the chat to answer any questions you may have, or he'll send you to the place where you can get the answer. Also, my email, as well as Jeff's email, will be in the chat. So feel free to email us at any time with any further questions you have. Our organization is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating the public on EVs. We can also give you practical advice on buying an EV, installing a home charging station, or even building your own EV. So please reach out to us at any time. I'm gonna try every button I've got here. There we go. Okay. Jay Leno, if you may know, owns over 300 cars and motorcycles, most of which are gas powered. Both Jay and myself have always enjoyed driving fuel burning cars. And back in my younger days, I was always tearing cars apart and rebuilding them, a real gearhead, if you will. But I, like Jay, see that it's time to move on. Jay Leno said the following. He said, electric is the future. Steam ran everything from 1800 till about 1911, and then the internal combustion engine took over from 1911 till about now. And I predict a child born today probably has as much chance of driving a gas car as people today have driving a car with a stick shift. They'll still be around, there's just not many of them. Here he's shown with his hybrid electric Chevy Volt in 2011. In his first 10 months of driving, he drove 11,000 miles and was still on the original tank of gas. What G. Leno was telling us was that things have to change to become more efficient. And this is how we make progress. The bottom line is that gasoline-powered cars are very inefficient. If you remember one slide today, please remember this one. From a scientific or a physics standpoint, it doesn't make any sense to drive an internal combustion engine anymore. If you look at this chart on the left side, we start with our energy, and that's your gasoline, that's the engine, okay? But what's important is, what does it take to get down here to turning the wheels? You're only going to get about 15% of all that energy can actually be used turning the wheels. Now look on the other side and look at an electric vehicle, again, starting with its 100% energy. Now we're getting between 80 and 85% of the energy is actually turning the wheels. Now I want to look at the, here, this is just a quick overview of the state of electric vehicle production. This graph shows projected sales for both EV and conventional passenger cars. As you can see, sales of conventional passenger cars are decreasing while the sales of electric vehicles are increasing. By 2030, EVs will be about 25% of the world market. And by 2038, the sales of EVs will surpass that of gasoline-powered cars. This slide illustrates global long-term passenger EV adoption by region. The EV adoption rate is projected to be so rapid that EVs will reach 50% of new car sales in both China and Europe around 2030, at which point EVs will make up some 40% of new US passenger sales. This slide shows global adoption of various electric vehicles. Now, buses are switching to electric faster than any other major vehicle segment. Municipal e-buses are now competitive with comparable diesel buses in terms of total cost of ownership. China's far ahead of everyone. They currently have over 421,000 electric buses in operation right now. Europe currently has about 2,000 and the US about 650, but that number is increasing. In addition, the cost of diesel buses is rising at about 3 to 4% per year, while the cost of an electric bus is decreasing. And incidentally, in April of 2019, the Chicago City Council approved a resolution to transition to 100% renewable energy by 2035, with the CTA bus fleet to be 100% electric by 2040. Los Angeles has a goal to have zero emission bus fleet by the time the city hosts the 2028 Olympics. And New York City and Seattle have pledged to commit to all electric buses by 2040. What's driving this adoption of electric vehicles? First and foremost, as you can see from this slide, is the sharp and ongoing drop in battery prices. Lithium-ion battery pack prices fell 88% from 2010 to 2019, and then dropped another 13% just from 2019 to 2020. It's projected that by 2024, the price will fall to $100 per kilowatt hour, which is roughly the level necessary for battery electric vehicles to be competitive with ICE cars without subsidies. It will continue to fall, and I'll discuss what a kilowatt hour is later in the presentation. You'll notice I use the term ICE a lot. That's internal combustion engine, and I will, in the future, that's all I'm going to say is ICE. Anyways, What are the implications for these falling battery prices? Well, in 2015, batteries were 57% of the cost of a medium-sized electric vehicle. Today, that's down to 33% of the cost of the vehicle. And by 2025, they think that the batteries will be about 20% of the cost of the vehicle. And as batteries get cheaper, ranges get better, 300, 400, 500 miles, making them more attractive to more buyers. The second thing driving the adoption of EVs is their total overall lower cost to produce. According to Bloomberg New Energy and Finance Analysis, in 2025, EVs should be cheaper upfront to make than a combustion vehicle. You got to think about it for just a minute. Building a traditional ICE powertrain with its engine, fuel system, transmission, et cetera, is the most labor-intensive part of building a car. Ford estimates that an electric car will require about 30% less labor to make. And that certainly could have some negative consequences for auto workers. Why did I purchase a Chevy Bolt right here in Elburn at Bob Jaff Chevrolet? Well, first, the environmental benefits. Second, they're fast, quiet, and fun to drive. Very reliable, very safe. And finally, they have a very low cost to operate and maintain. Let's take a closer look at this. First and foremost, EVs are good for the environment. Cars and light trucks on the road today account for about 28% of US carbon dioxide emissions. So not only am I helping people breathe easier, because vehicle emissions are linked to a variety of health problems, such as asthma, cardiac problems, dementia, but I'm also doing my part to combat climate change. Now, as you watch this next video, keep in mind that in the state of Illinois, as of October 2020, electric generation by source was a little over 11% natural gas, 16.8% coal, 59.6% was nuclear, and 12.2% were renewables. Now, the video you're about to see was created by the Union of Concerned Scientists, which is a nonprofit organization founded by the faculty and students of MIT.
Here's a question. How much cleaner are battery electric cars compared to gasoline-powered cars? To find out, the Union of Concerned Scientists studied the total global warming emissions of each vehicle throughout every stage of its life, from manufacturing to driving to disposal. And there's a big difference. Both cars start out on the assembly line with similar parts made of raw materials like steel and aluminum. For a gasoline car, this manufacturing and assembling stage generates about 7 tons of emissions. Battery electric cars, meanwhile, are powered by, you guessed it, a large battery. This requires more energy and materials to produce for an 84-mile range battery electric car, bringing its emissions tally up to roughly 8 tons. But what happens when they hit the road? Gas-powered cars produce pollution with every gallon of gas they burn, with even more emissions coming from extracting, refining, and transporting the fuel to gas stations. Electric cars, on the other hand, run on electricity, which can be much cleaner than gasoline, depending on how the electricity is made. 2/3 of Americans live in regions where charging an electric car produces fewer global warming emissions than driving even a 50-mile-per-gallon gasoline car. By the end of their lives, the average gas car will rack up 57 tons of global warming emissions, compared to 28 tons for a battery electric car. Disposing and recycling each car adds less than 1 ton of emissions. And remember that electric car battery? It can be recycled or reused. In the final tally, an 84-mile range battery electric car cuts global warming emissions by more than 50% compared with a similar-sized gas-powered car, making up for the battery's manufacturing emissions within 1 year of driving. And as the country adds more and more renewable sources of electricity, driving electric will get even better. So there you have it, straight from the engineers at the Union of Concerned Scientists. Electric cars, clean and getting cleaner.
The second reason I love electric cars is they're fun to drive. They really are. They put a smile on your face. They really do. They have a low center of gravity, and that improves their ride quality. And it also means they're less likely to roll over. I love the extra smooth acceleration. It's instant. It's easy to get into traffic or to pass other vehicles. ICE cars vibrate constantly. They're changing as the transmission revs up, and you can hear noises, all that kind of thing. Even in my Bolt, which doesn't look like a speed demon, I can go from 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds. We're going to look at that in just a second. This is the dash of the Bolt, what you're looking at. The 245 you see on the left, that's based on the mileage habits of the driver. And the green you see is basically your equivalent of a gas tank, your charge. And depending how you drive, you could get a minimum of 184 or a max of 289 in this case. Now, the round circle you see is going to tell you your efficiency of driving. Yellow means you're not driving very efficiently, and green being that you drive efficiently. To the right, you see the word regen. It's showing you when the brakes are coming in to regenerate and repower the battery a little bit, add some juice to the battery. Let's see how this is going 0 to 60. And as you can see, that's pretty darn quick and pretty darn quick. Well, the instant torque is what a lot of EV owners love. This is that instant speed I mentioned and about getting into traffic, etc. As we saw, my Bolt can go 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds, but that's nothing compared to a Tesla Model S P100D in what's known as ludicrous mode. You go from 0 to 60 in 2.4 seconds. It's basically like a rocket launch. Let's watch this video as a few unsuspecting passengers, how they react to ludicrous when they're taken for a ride from 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds.
Oh, really?
So I hope we're not going to get Why did you do that?
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Oh my God. My stomach, it's like I want to reach in this hard. And
Okay, as you can see, it's a lot of fun. The third reason I love my EV is because I save so much money. In October this year, Consumers Report completed a study which concluded that drivers of EVs are saving an average of 50% on maintenance and repair over the life of a vehicle compared to an ICE car. A 2018 study from the University of Michigan found that electric vehicles cost less than half as much to operate as ICE cars, similar finding. The average cost to operate an EV in the US is about $485 a year, while the average for an ICE vehicle is $1,117. And as battery technology improves, that cost differential will be even greater. And on top of the cost savings, electricity rates are more stable and predictable than gas prices. And if you want to go one step further, you can install solar panels on your house and further reduce your electric cost. EVs require less maintenance than conventional vehicles because there are far fewer moving parts. The drivetrain on an ICE car has about 2,000 moving parts. EVs have about 20 moving parts, making for less breakdowns as well as less need for servicing. A lot of times when we were at parties, and I'm talking EVs. Oh, he's talking EVs, really? Yes. And so I would say, you know what? I don't do any oil changes on my car. And the looks I get on some people's faces are like, really? You don't? Because that's something we can all relate to. Getting the oil change and kind of a pain in the butt having it done. I don't know. There's no engine. There's no oil change, and there's also no fan belt change or an engine air filter or spark plugs, or muffler system, or transmission fluid, or any of that. You don't have any of that anymore, which is very nice. I had to include this because this is my Chevy Bolt maintenance schedule. I included it because it's hilarious. That's what it is. You have to rotate the tires every 7,500 miles, change the cabin air filter every 22,000 miles. And then, over the lifetime of the vehicle, you'll need tires and brakes, but a lot less brakes because you're not using them as much. We use regen a lot more, and I'll get to that later. But you do have to change the coolant fluid, which cools the batteries, at 150,000 miles. So that means, let's see, based on 10,000 miles a year, I'll have to go to the dealership in 15 years. So I better make that appointment now, to make sure I can get in. Anyways, it's great. Now I'd like to talk about the different types of electric vehicles out there. This is a basic hybrid, the Prius you've all seen for many years. It uses the combined efforts of both a gasoline engine and a battery-powered electric motor to drive the vehicle power. The work of moving the vehicle is shared between these two propulsion sources. That electric motor can give a boost, perhaps while merging or climbing a hill, without burning additional fuel. It may also be able to drive them for brief periods solely on electrical power with the gas turned off. Power for the electric motor is created by a built-in generator and stored in an onboard battery. In a non-plug-in hybrid, which you're looking at here, all the power is generated on board. The plug-in hybrid sits somewhere between a hybrid and a full electric vehicle. The plug-in hybrid generally has a larger and more powerful battery than the plug-in. The battery can be recharged by plugging into an external source. On short trips, the hybrid operates like an EV. It doesn't use gas. And for example, this shown here is the Ford Escape plug-in hybrid. Will go 37 miles on a charge before having to switch to gasoline motor power. At this point, the gas engine is connected to the transmission to turn the wheels, and the electric motor is no longer used. The Chevy Volt with a V hybrid, which my wife drives, can go 53 miles on a charge. Other examples of plug-in hybrid are the Toyota Prius Prime, Honda Clarity, Subaru Crosstrek, and the Chrysler Pacifica, and many more. Finally, the battery electric vehicle, like shown here, the new Ford Mach-E and the Nissan Leaf are totally dependent on rechargeable batteries. The EV uses an electric motor and motor controllers instead of internal combustion engines for propulsion. With these vehicles, I love the saying, there's no drilling, there's no spilling, and there's no filling, which is true. And there's many examples of this. Tesla, the Chevy Bolt, VW e-Golf, the BMW i3, the upcoming Hummer EV, Rivian pickup, the ID4, many, 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 many more. I did want to mention that during my studies, I came across a very environmentally friendly vehicle, but it had an extremely retro look. But it's kind of cool because it burns no gas and it also burns no electricity. You may recognize it. This was an important study done early in 2020, before the COVID hit. And I think it brings out some good characteristics of EV ownership. That's what they did. What are the owners like? 71% of the people they surveyed had not previously owned an EV, but 96% said they'd buy or lease one again. So that tells us something. Buyers' concerns prior to the purchase, 91% had at least one concern, and insufficient range or locating your charge station were most common. I'm going to say that I had that same concern. I really did. When I went to work, I was a little concerned. Is there a charging station I can get to? Am I, all kinds of little questions. But after owning it, just a few days, I went, okay, what was that all about? There's nothing to it, nothing at all. As we see here, once you own one, it eases those concerns. Their results said 77% originally concerned about insufficient range became less or no longer concerned. That's where I'm at. And 70% that were concerned about lack of places to charge, that wasn't an issue either. 43% said they drive more now with the electric car than they did with their ICE car. I kind of do that too. I mean, I don't feel as guilty still to just jump in and go to the store. I don't know. It's just, I love to drive it too. It's fun. So I can understand that. And 78% have one or more ICE vehicle in their household, yet 89% of their driving's in the EV. So, and finally, their charging habits. Electric vehicle owners in this study do 75% of their charging at home, and 95% of electric vehicle owners have never run out of a charge. I had to throw this in here because it just came out, at least they revealed it. It was actually done last year, but they conducted the study in November of 2020 of 2,000 electric vehicle drivers in England. And basically they show that once you go electric, you don't go back. 91% said they would not replace their EV with a gas or a diesel vehicle again. 9% said they weren't sure, and less than 1% wanted to return to driving a fossil fueled vehicle. Now let's look at buying an EV. A 2019 study by Consumers Report and the Union of Concerned Scientists showed that 63% of prospective car buyers are interested in getting an EV, and 31% said they would consider one for their next purchase. So what should you buy? Pure electric versus hybrid, new versus used, or these are all questions any prospective EV owner has. And I'm not going to try to answer all those questions, but rather direct you to the best sources of information available. There's an EV out there for everyone at all price points from $10,000 to $100,000, with ranges from 75 miles to well over 300 miles. Now, I put at the bottom here 4 places that I recommend you can go to research all the vehicles. And I've checked them out, and they're very, very good. And one is Sierra Club. The second is Plug-in America. Then there's myev.com. And finally, I mentioned Current Automotive, which is located right here in Naperville. It's the only used EV dealership that I know of in the Chicago area. And they're very good. You can go over and drive some of their cars, and there's no pressure at all. You can learn about them. These guys really know their electric cars. And I didn't want to mention again that Jeff and I will also be glad to help you find an EV that fits your requirements and your budget. Because the best way to understand an electric car is to take it for a ride. So I urge you to go to a dealer, take a test drive. And I was recently asked a question from a prospective EV buyer. He said, to drive an EV, do I need a current driver's license? Sorry, I'll try to keep down with the really bad humor there. This handout describes all the EVs that are available in the Midwest, to include price, battery size, vehicle range, et cetera, et cetera. It's very busy. I don't really look at that too much. You can go to evinfolist.com, and this is 3 pages, and you can download it if you want, or just put your request in the chat, and we will send you the 3 pages of that. It's a good read, and it gives you a lot of information. Just keep in mind, sticker prices aren't the full story. Since the cost of electricity is less than gas and maintenance is far less, your cost of ownership can be less even when the sticker price is more. Some people have asked me, can I use cash to pay for a new electric car? I tell them, why no, you have to charge it. Okay. Now, the 3 best vehicles in America are: number 1, a pickup truck; number 2, a pickup truck; and the third, you guessed it, it's a pickup truck. And that's why I had to put this slide up. The Ford F-150, number 1 selling; number 2, Ram pickup; and the Chevrolet Silverado. So because of that, you can imagine that EV producers want to tap into this market. And some reasons you may want to consider an electric pickup are: they have massive torque and horsepower. For example, the Rivian pickup has 826 pounds of torque with 700 horsepower, and it can tow up to 11,000 pounds. It's amazing. And most EV trucks have all-wheel drive, as they have independent motors for each wheel. And this means all the power is delivered to moving the vehicle. And also means you don't need all that other junk that 4-wheel drive has, like transfer cases, locking hubs, output shafts. It's all gone. You don't need any of that. And finally, job site power. All EV trucks have big batteries, which can be turned into a job site power source. And by using an inverter, you can get AC power outlets on the vehicle. And this is kind of a big deal because so many pickup trucks are used as work trucks. Okay. If you do want to do your part for the environment and are leery about going all electric, you have a couple of options. If you own 2 cars, you might use the EV for around town, and then if you need to drive farther, you could use your ICE car. If you only own 1 car, you could just buy electric. If you need to drive long distance, just rent a car. You're going to save money every day and doing good things for the environment. And for those of you that still have range anxiety, I understand. I recommend a good plug-in hybrid. Plug-in hybrids have lots of mileage to run around town. Use Chevy Volt can go, as I think I mentioned, 53 miles on electric, or a Honda Clarity can go 48 miles, and then you can go for hundreds of miles after that. In any case, this is important. When buying an EV, buy more range, that is kilowatt hours, than you think you'll need. Consumer Reports recommends that if you live in a cold climate, make sure the EV you buy has twice your typical daily warm weather mileage needs. If you want to go all electric here in Chicago right now, if you were going to buy it like tomorrow, there's only a couple cars that I'd really recommend if you're going to buy a brand new one, is a Chevy Bolt, or put in an order for the Volkswagen ID4, which you could get it later in the year, or of course a Tesla Model 3. These cars all have ranges of around 250 miles. And also, just incidentally, I have seen 2020 Bolts priced at about $26,000 at dealers. So, and just another plug here, General Motors is offering 0% finance on used Bolts and Volts through March 31st. Used plug-in hybrids and electric cars are a good option. You can buy them where you buy any other car, an auto dealer, CarMax, Auto Trader. And again, Jeff and I will be glad to help you find a car that meets your needs. We have done this for several people. They just come to us and say, I want to spend this much money. I want the car to do this. And we try to match them. Jeff is especially good at this. And our group is dedicated to helping people find the EV of their dreams. And finally, you can lease an EV. Payments are usually lower than a regular monthly payment, and you get to stay up with the latest technology, including the batteries and the range, and you don't have to worry about depreciation. Let's see which one. Okay. I might recommend, however, that you want to wait till President Biden's electrification program is fully laid out before your purchase of an EV. He is big on electric vehicles. And he said he wants to incentivize all Americans to get an electric car. Among his ideas he is considering is the cash for clunkers, giving rebates to replace ICE vehicles with EVs, restoring the $7,500 tax credit for US-made electric vehicles. Currently, once an automaker sells 200,000 vehicles, you no longer get that rebate. And that would be Tesla and General Motors are the two companies that have already sold 200,000. So he wants to expand that. So Tesla and General Motors, they're no longer held back by that 200,000 vehicle limit. And finally, he wants to invest in 500,000 public charging outlets. That equates to about 125,000 stations across the US, putting them almost on par with the amount of gas stations in the US. This would be an infrastructure milestone, and it would cover 57% of the charging that US vehicles will need by 2030. And it could spark the sale of some 25 million electric cars and trucks, according to Bloomberg. Finally, number 4, now that isn't an idea anymore. He put that into effect here a couple of days ago, or at least he confirmed that's what he wants to do. He confirmed it. He said he was going to replace the entire US fleet with electric vehicles made in the USA. And this amounts to over 645,000 vehicles, which is a lot of vehicles. 245,000 are civilian, 173,000 are military, and 225,000 are post office vehicles. I'd like to turn to the subject of charging an EV. We're going to look at what is a level 1 and 2 and DC fast charging, how to charge your car at home and on the road, what charging times and costs associated with charging. There are 3 main types of charging. Level 1 is just plugging into a standard outlet, like you plug your lamp in. This charges pretty slowly, from 3 to 5 miles range per hour. It's most useful when a vehicle is going to be parked for many hours, like overnight. Now, the average driver in the US drives less than 40 miles a day, so a level 1 charger may meet their needs. Now, level 2 is what you'll find at the majority of public charging stations. You might have seen them around town, parking lots like at the Woodfield Mall. And it's what most, but not all people install in their garage. And this can add 10 to 25 miles per hour of range, depending on your type of EV and its onboard charger. It's ideal for times that you'll be parked for at least an hour, such as when you're shopping or you're at a restaurant or at work. I mentioned onboard charger. It's important to understand that you're converting AC to DC from the battery. So the onboard charger converts that, okay? DC charging, on the other hand, is faster charging. It can deliver up to 100 miles of range per hour or more. Some charging their EVs up to 80% in 20 to 30 minutes. And fees are going to be higher for DC fast charging. It's because DC provides more power and it's more expensive to operate and install the charging stations. By the way, the new Tesla V3 supercharger can recover 75 miles of charge in 5 minutes, with rates up to 1,000 miles per hour. Speaking of Tesla, did you hear about the Tesla owner in jail? He was charged with battery. Sorry. This is my wife and I in a garage, okay? I'm plugging into the garage at our lake house. I'm plugging into the level 2 charger, and she's plugging her Volt into a level 1 basic outlet with the cord that comes with the car. And according to Consumers Report recent study, owners of battery electric vehicles with a range of 250 miles or more will be able to do 92% of their charging at home, requiring over 6 stops a year at a DC fast charging station. So most of your charging is done at home. Now, this is a very important point I'm going to make here. You need to understand this is a change in your fueling habit pattern, okay? Before you drive your vehicle around, you get to a quarter tank of gas or so, find yourself a gas station, you pull in, 5 or 6 minutes, you fill it up and you're on your way. This pattern is no longer true. Now your habit pattern is to plug your vehicle in every night at home and then unplug it in the morning and you're ready to go. Your tank is full all the time. Some have suggested, however, that this may bring something new to the marriage. People ask me, what does it cost to charge a vehicle? So that's why I put this slide up here, just looking at a Bolt. And this was in 2018, roughly, and about $772 to charge it completely up. And the gas equivalent was close to $30. So you can see that's quite a savings. This slide shows just some of the many level 2 home charging stations available today on the top part of the slide. Many of these, you can just purchase it on Amazon. They run from $400 to $500 and they can be more or less, but somewhere around that. But basically I tell people it's about $1,000 to totally put in a level 2. That's including the electrician, etc. Now that price can certainly vary, but roughly $1,000. Something to remember though, that the cost of through the end of 2021, you can also receive a 30% federal tax rebate up to $1,000 for the cost of installing that station. So that's pretty nice. Now, what if you live in an apartment or condo? Yes, this can be more challenging, certainly. But it's very possible. First, you can charge at the nearest charging station, which can be found on your phone app. I'll talk about that in a minute. And also charging at work is a good option. But also, you can just plug your EV into a 110 outlet near your parking space with the cord that comes with the car. While it's slower, it works just fine for overnight parking. If you think you require level 2 charging, you can petition your landlord or condo board to have an EV charging station installed in the building's parking lot or garage. The company's ChargePoint and EverCharge will assist you. I called both of them, and just to try to understand when they say they will help you. They will help you work with your condo board or whoever to get to make the whole thing happen, because they're used to doing it. Now, on the bottom part of this slide, you're looking at the different connectors. In North America, every electric vehicle manufacturer except Tesla and Nissan uses the J1772 connector. Tesla provides an adapter, so you can also use a 1772. And Nissan uses a CHAdeMO, which allows for DC fast charging. The CCS connector, which stands for Combined Charging System, uses still the 1772, but adds 2 more pins at the bottom to allow for DC fast charging. A note here is that not all plug-in cars on the road today have a DC fast charging port. Most hybrids can only charge at level 1 or level 2. Just want to mention that Batavia right now is offering residents a $500 rebate for the purchase and installation of electric vehicle charger in the home. So that's pretty nice. You get credit on your electric bill. The city of Naperville offers residents a $700 rebate for a level 2 vehicle charging station. And again, rebates are in form of credit on your electric bill. This is a picture I took at Electrify America DC fast charging station at Walmart just south of Kalamazoo. I took my first long distance trip from Elburn all the way to north of Detroit. And I got to admit, I was a little edgy because this is my first trip. And I'm like, oh, I don't, am I going to make it? You know, even though I planned it out, I knew I was going to stop. It wasn't a big deal. I've got my apps and everything. But when I got south of Chicago, I pulled over and went to a DC fast charger and put a little more juice in. But I had plenty. And then I got to Kalamazoo, which is where I knew I definitely needed to charge. And I charged. It took about 40 minutes. I went and had lunch. And I got back in my car and I drove. I stopped again in Ann Arbor for a little bit. And then I was on my way. But I was always keeping myself well ahead. Around town shopping, you normally use just a level 2, not this DC fast charger. And many of them are free. For example, in St. Charles, in the parking garage, you can park and get 2 free hours of charge. At the O'Hare parking garage F, the new one, it has 24 level 2 chargers and they're free, which is kind of cool. If you're going to fly somewhere, just park there, plug in, fly. When you come back, your car's fully charged. Very nice, and no cost to you. If you're going long distance or going places you're unfamiliar with, there are various phone apps available that'll help you plan your route to ensure you always get plenty of charge. This slide shows some of the mini apps or the apps that are available. Any one of them will show where the charging stations are located, whether they're level 1 or 2, shown in green, or a DC fast charger, shown in orange, and if the charge station is available, the cost to charge, etc. With Tesla and many of the newer cars coming out, you just put in your destination and the car will figure out where to charge along the way if needed. And many of the apps will now plan the route for you, telling you when and where to stop. Also, Google Maps now shows the charging stations. Just a little factoid for you. Within a 9.3 mile radius of Chicago, there are 602 charging stations. 310 of those are free. 520 are level 2, and there are 82 DC fast chargers. People ask me, what does it cost to DC fast charge? So this is just an example there. This is an example using a Chevy Bolt at the ChargePoint network. It's important to point out that ChargePoint station owners set their own fees, so always check the station details page in your app for the latest fee information. And the price of charging can also vary across different EV networks. The bottom line here is you're likely to pay double in public for the convenience of DC fast charging on the go, but it's still much cheaper than gasoline. But if you are out and about in an unfamiliar town, I want to urge you to remember this, that when you're driving an electric car, never turn onto a dead-end street because you'll be stuck on a road with no outlet. The charging infrastructure is getting better every day. Now, here's the key terms. A charging unit is a single charge point or a plug. A charging station will have multiple units. As of August 2020, there were 26,000 charging stations with more than 84,000 units open to the public in the US. General Motors and a charging company, Evs Go, pictured here, announced they plan to add 2,700 fast charging units in the next 5 years. Now, Volkswagen, their subsidiary Electrify America, shown in the bottom left, formed as a result of the VW emissions scandal, is going to pour $2 billion by the end of 2026 into developing a nationwide web of fast chargers. And by the end of 2021, they plan to have 800 total charging stations with 3,500 DC fast charging plugs. Now, in the top right there, that's a charging station called Volta, and they offer free charging. And I had heard about this, and they make their money off just the big screen advertising you're looking at right there. I was at the Jewel just shopping, and I looked over and I went, hey, what's that? And so I went over and took this picture. There were 2 of them in the Jewel parking lot, which was great. And now I'd like to show you just a few innovations in the world of EV charging. Real quick, the Society of Automotive Engineers International, after 10 years of research, have developed a standardized wireless system called the J2965. And it's similar to how you now charge your phone. You don't have to plug it in. You just drive over the top and it charges. A company called Spark Charge developed a portable DC fast charging called Roadie. It can deliver a charge to electric vehicle on the road, anywhere, anytime. And they launched a company called Boost EV, and that allows you just to use a little app here, and it'll provide you with a service provider without having to call a tow truck or AAA. It can charge your car at a rate of about 1 mile per minute. So you really never have to worry about running out of a charge. And this service is available in Chicago and several other major cities. Volkswagen on the right developed a mobile charging robot, and instead of parking in an EV charging spot, the charger comes to you. They're still working on that, but I think it's a great idea. Most electric cars can go more than 200 miles on a full charge. These illustrations depict some examples of different ranges. Note the Chrysler minivan hybrid can go 520 miles as it runs on electric and gas. I would now like to look at battery capacity, expected battery life, and some effects on EV range. In an electric car, the battery is made up of hundreds or thousands of smaller batteries, some that look like oversized AA batteries. You could very loosely think of an electric vehicle battery as the new gas tank. And while this comparison works on many levels, the analogy doesn't completely hold true. An electric vehicle's battery capacity is measured in kilowatt hours. In the EV world, kilowatt hours are to batteries as gallons are to gas tanks. The kilowatt hour is your energy, your fuel. Choosing an EV with a higher kilowatt hour rating is like buying a car that comes with a larger gas tank. You'll be able to drive more miles before needing to fill up. For example, a Nissan Leaf with a 40 kilowatt hour battery has a range of 150 miles, where a 2020 Chevy Bolt has a 66 kilowatt hour battery and it can go 259 miles. A kilowatt, on the other hand, is your power. That's what is sent to the wheels. It's kind of like horsepower. The more kilowatts you have, the more you power your vehicle. A Chevy Bolt produces about 149, which is about a kilowatt, which is about 200 horsepower, whereas a Tesla Model 3 long range, 430 kilowatts, 577 horsepower. Batteries do degrade over time, but not as much as you might think. Lithium-ion batteries in an EV have a different architecture than on your cell phone or your laptop. Consumers Report states that generally speaking, EV batteries have been longer lasting with better performance than many people predicted years ago. Despite loss of some range over their lifetimes, they'll be more functional for a very long time. Expect EV batteries to lose about 2.3% of their starting range per year. For example, the Chevy Bolt, starting with 258 miles of range, would be reduced after 5 years to about 228 miles. Be aware that frequent use of DC fast chargers can degrade your range faster. And draining your battery to zero or frequently charging to 100% can also hurt range over time. It's recommended that EV owners maintain a charge between 20 and 80%. And many of the cars today, you can set that, and that's exactly what it will charge to. You can always go to 100% when you need it. So it's not that you don't do it, but you can preserve your battery that way. Driving technique, of course, on an EV or an ICE car is going to affect your range. If you do jackrabbit starts, quick acceleration, or drive at high speeds, it's going to reduce your range. Another concern people have is temperature's effect on range. To understand the effect of temperature on range, Geotab company in 2020 did an analysis of 5.2 million trips taken by 4,200 electric vehicles. Let's take a look at this study in just a little more detail. Cold temperatures reduce the range of an electric vehicle, but people often assume that it's the winter weather because the batteries are directly affected by the temperature. Partially true. Cold lithium-ion batteries do have a greater resistance to charging, partly due to their battery chemistry. However, what really causes your range to suffer is heating and cooling the vehicle cabin and its battery. The analysis from Geotab found that around 32 degrees, the range of electric vehicles drops less than 80% of their published figure. At 5 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty cold, you can lose up to 54% of your range, your miles. Hot temperatures also sink your achievable range, as seen on this graph. To best combat those effects and get the most range, if you can, keep a car in the garage and keep it plugged in. Most EVs have a preconditioning that lets owners set a departure time and the desired temperature, and it'll turn on the climate control and warm the cabin prior to departure. Well, with the car plugged in, you're on the grid. You're not using your battery. The good news is future solid-state batteries will not be impacted by temperature as much as lithium-ion batteries. Now, one way to increase your range is through regenerative braking. EVs have two types of brakes, friction brakes, and which are normal brakes, and then regenerative braking. Regenerative braking is a process that when you slow down, you feed energy back to recharge the battery. You have a motor generator as depicted here, which normally turns the wheels, but when you come off the accelerator, the wheels turn the generator, reversing the magnetic field and helps charge your battery. You can increase your range from 10 to 20%. And this saves on brake wear quite a bit. There are three final topics I'd like to touch on this evening. The race for better batteries, how auto manufacturers are ramping up their investment in EVs, and finally, what policies are being taken around the globe to phase out ICE cars. There are breakthrough stories every day about batteries, and a top priority of all battery development is to ethically source battery materials. The move away from the use of cobalt is gaining momentum. Cobalt is expensive, and much of it is mined under inhumane conditions in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Tesla's new 4680 battery, which was just introduced in September, is a nickel-based, cobalt-free lithium battery that increases EV supercharging capabilities and cuts manufacturing costs. It's got 5 times the energy, it improves the range by 16%, and it gives 6 times more of the power of current batteries. They're first going to appear in Model Ys produced in Germany. Tesla also uses the lithium iron phosphate battery in their Chinese Model 3. This battery has a lower density, but it's less prone to overheating, and it eliminates both nickel and cobalt. The advantage of this battery is long life and less cost, which provide a pathway to battery prices below $80 a kilowatt hour. And this is going to make it easy to produce Tesla's $25,000 vehicle, which is now on the drawing board. This just came out recently, January 18th. Penn State announced that they've developed a lithium ion phosphate battery that has a range of 250 miles with the ability to charge in 10 minutes. In a recent paper, they described the research that showed LFP batteries operating at a sustained temperature of 140 degrees perform much better than a lithium ion phosphate battery operating in a standard temperature. This makes them safer, cheaper, and they can last for 2 million miles worth of driving, and they contain no cobalt. And just as a note here, Apple is considering using LFP battery in their Apple car, which is due out in 2024. The holy grail of EV batteries is solid state. They provide smaller size, higher energy density, longer lifespan, and increased safety. And they can theoretically store twice as much energy as a lithium ion battery. I just mentioned these two because these announcements came out in December and they were pretty big. QuantumScape, which is backed by Bill Gates and Volkswagen, announced a breakthrough in solid state technology in December, as I say. They said their batteries will offer 80% greater range than a comparable lithium ion battery, and they'll be able to charge to 80% capacity in 15 minutes. These batteries also have increased longevity. An EV with a 300-mile range could go 240,000 miles before the battery pack would start degrading below 80%, and they're 99% recyclable. Volkswagen has said that they will offer solid-state batteries on some vehicles by the middle of the decade. Toyota, just a couple of days later, which everybody found really interesting that they just came out a couple of days later to announce this. They announced that they would reveal a prototype electric car in 2021 using a solid-state battery. And it's projected to have a 310-mile range and charge from 0 to 100% in 10 minutes. They want to be the first EV to market using solid-state batteries in the early 2020s. And both these developments will be interesting to watch. We have to see them to believe them. I like the research though. As I mentioned earlier, all major companies in the world are investing in making the jump to electric car production. And this slide depicts some of the major recent investments. Of particular interest are, in March of 2020, GM announced an investment of $27 billion by 2025 in electric and automated vehicles. GM also is investing $2.3 billion in an EV battery plant in Lordstown, Ohio. And they plan 30 new global electric vehicles for sale worldwide by 2025. And I think I mentioned that 20 will be available in the US. Volkswagen is also going to go all electric. 40% of their sales will be electric by 2030. In 2020, they delivered last year 231,000 electric vehicles, which is triple what they delivered in 2019. Incidentally, Volkswagen in 2020 was the largest car company in the world. And finally, startup Rivian, which builds pickups and SUVs right here in Normal, Illinois. They've recently put $1 billion into the factory there, and their vehicles have a range of 400 miles, and deliveries are expected later this year. Since 2019, Rivian has raised $8 billion. And most recently, in January, they got $2.65 billion. So Rivian is now valued at $27.6 billion. And people really have confidence in this company. Amazon, I don't know if you've heard this, Amazon went to Rivian and they said, we want electric delivery vehicles. We deliver a lot of stuff. Yeah, like they do. And they said, what we need is we need 100,000 electric delivery vans. And Rivian said, righto, we're on it. So they took the order, and that is the project is expected to be the largest deployment of electric vehicles in the world. The order is likely worth over $4 billion to Rivian. Automakers' plans for the future include electric freight vehicles. According to Rocky Mountain Institute research released on January 19th, and I'm just going to quote them there, over the next year, the US and Canada alone, zero emissions freight vehicle availability is expected to increase from over 70 models to 24 manufacturers to at least 85 models with over 30 companies. Depicted here are just a few examples. Why do we want electric freight vehicles? Well, they're quieter, and it's easier on the truck driver. It's not as noisy. And also they can drive at times diesel trucks can't, which was new to me, but it makes sense. In certain big cities, you can't bring diesel vehicles into areas in the middle of the night because they're so loud, etc. So this is one advantage. And of course, they've got tons of torque. They can pull a heavy load, and they've got regenerative braking, which is increasing the efficiency of the truck. A lower cost of fuel, as we would expect, and greatly reduced routine maintenance. The truck spends more time on the road and saves companies money. 17 countries have taken various steps or various types of action to phase out ICE vehicles and increase the number of EVs. This slide provides some examples of the countries doing so. As you can see, Britain, no new ICE vehicles can be sold in the country after 2030. Now, of course, you can sell older cars than that, but at 2030, no new cars can be ICE. So that's pretty neat. And here in the United States, you probably may have heard that we're taking similar action. Transportation in the United States is the largest source of greenhouse gases in the US at about 28% in 2018. And light duty vehicles make up the majority of that at 59%. California announced a ban on the sale of gas-powered vehicles from 2035 on. And New York State Senator Pete Harckham introduced a bill that would also require all of New York State's sale of new cars and trucks to be zero emissions by 2035. And there are several other states considering these bans as well. This ends my presentation, and I hope I've shown you that we are truly in the middle of an EV revolution. Things are changing fast, and it's a wonderful change. And as we've seen, EVs are good for the environment, and they're a whole lot of fun to drive. They really are. I sincerely believe driving an EV will put a smile on your face. No question about it. Thank you very much. And if you have any further questions, please email myself or Jeff Miller. Thank you.
Yay!
Thank you so much, Tracy. I wish we'd either been able to be in person or had some sort of a laugh track on the thing or something like that for all of your jokes.
Well, the jokes weren't real
I was
funny,
laughing in the background even if you couldn't hear it. So thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. I will be sending out the recording of this program shortly here this evening, and I'll go ahead and, do you want me to go ahead and put your contact information on that email too, Tracy, just
Sure.
in case they don't. They should be able to see the chat and everything on there as well, but just in case.
We're here to help.
Yep.
For sure.
And again, feel free to share it with whomever you'd like. That recording will be available for 30 days, but I think it's also going to be up on our Facebook page, and that should be up longer. So
And
in case, yeah.
Did you guys see your answers to your questions?
Yes,
Okay, good deal.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Good.
Great job, Tracy.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Great job.
Nice job.
It is
A lot of
today
fun.
is my grandpa's 92nd birthday, and he is a big car fan. So the first thing I'm going to do as soon as this recording is uploaded is send it to him so he can watch it and
Sure. Oh, that's
Very
great.
cool.
enjoy it. So
Oh yeah, they're fun. They really are. I'm not making this up.
Keep the jokes coming. Bye-bye.
you guys,
Okay, we'll see you
everybody have a
later.
good night.
See you guys.
Thanks,
Very much.
Tracy.
All
Bye-bye.
right.